Hey gang, and welcome back. This week we're going to look at my top 10 EDH cards that I dislike playing against. This list is going to be a bit more opinionated as it's cards I personally dislike playing against, which doesn't mean the same for you. We'll start off with a quick honorable mention of Iona, Shield of Emeria. I don't really have a problem with Iona. I know a lot of people do, and especially people who play monocolored decks will have a hard time if she resolves, but chances are there are ways to get around her. She can be very crippling against certain decks, but I've never had a player quit because of her. However, despite the fact that I don't mind her, I know a lot of people online don't care for her, and as a result, I think she's worth an honorable mention. Now let's get into my list. Number 10, Possibility Storm. Now I'm sure you're wondering why Possibility Storm makes my top 10 list, and frankly it's because I really don't like the randomness of the card. If something is killed, board wiped, or countered, at least I know where it's going. I can even handle things being exiled. Possibility Storm removes any kind of reliability of what cards you play, and as a result can sometimes help your opponents as opposed to hinder them. Couple that decks often run Possibility Storm to abuse it, like Norin or Mishra. I feel like all of this put together merits a spot on my list. Number 9, Cyclonic Rift. Now this is the point where I'm sure most of you are nodding your heads. There is no deck in existence that wants to be on the opposing side of resolved Cyclonic Rift. To make matters worse, it's pretty much an inevitability if you're going against a blue deck. If they're playing blue, they're running Cyclonic Rift. You can bet money on it. Not only that, but is your opponent passing having 7 mana open in some form, you're going to get Cyclonic Rift on the turn before theirs. I will argue that it's okay for each color to have ways to deal with certain types of permanents in their own fashion, but oftentimes these spells hit the caster's permanents as well as their opponents. Cyclonic Rift is not restricted by this, in the sense that it doesn't hit any of their stuff. This in my opinion pushes it beyond something like Damnation or Austere Command, and elevates it well above them into a category of infuriating. Number 8, Mana Crypt. Fast mana accelerants are a staple to any EDH deck, but Mana Crypt is heads and tails better than any runner-up. Creating powerful explosive starts and allowing for cards like Windfall to be resolved as early as turn 1, fully disrupting anyone's opening hand, Mana Crypt is a main offender in my opinion. Although I will admit, if everyone is able to run a Mana Crypt, I feel like it's a lot more even. I guess my number 8 spot is not just restricted to Mana Crypt, but rather fast mana in general. If everyone has access to it, then everyone can do the same kind of crazy stuff. It's when one deck sits down and has a huge lead over everyone else, and it's basically 3 against 1 with no hope of winning. Number 7, Storm Cauldron. Why is this even a card? This card is so frustrating. I had the misfortune of playing this against Evil Adam my first time, and it was so stupid. The only time you're ever going to see this card is whenever someone's able to abuse it with things like City of Traders or Ancient Tomb to be able to ramp huge amounts of mana. Yes, they're getting tons of advantage about it, but everyone else is going to have a bad time. Number 6, Mindslaver. One of the worst feelings in Magic is having your game plan disrupted. It's even worse when an opponent is able to take control of your turn and use your own resources to do so. It's kind of like that extra salt in the wound kind of thing where you know your opponent's going to use your resources to mess up your own stuff. But Mindslaver isn't the only card in Magic that has this effect. There's Worst Fears and Sorin Markov that also do it, but Mindslaver stands above those two. The main issue with Mindslaver is the fact that it doesn't exile itself and is therefore easily recurrable. It's often a staple in any kind of blue artifact deck or even Duretti, which allows a player to essentially take your turn forever, locking you out of the game. Number 5, Extra Turn cards. So like Mindslaver, extra turn cards pretty much lock you out of the game, only you get the added benefit of watching someone goldfish their entire deck until they hopefully win or waste a lot of your time. Thankfully, recent extra turn cards have had an exile clause, but that's not the case with some of the older ones. Being able to twin cast or use Melek with something like Time Stretch to gain 4 extra turns is ridiculous and very disheartening. To make matters worse, sometimes these decks don't even get to go off, and so you're just sitting there waiting 15 minutes for them to play a land, cast a spell, dirtle around, and pass. So yeah, what's worse than not being able to play your own turn? Never having a turn again. Number 4, Leovold, Emissary of Trest. Now, I don't hate Leovold, Emissary of Trest as a card, let me just start with that. What I do dislike, however, is how it seems like everyone forces him in one direction. We could play Leovold bingo basically, where I list off a bunch of cards like Teferi's Puzzle Box, Windfall, Day's Undoing, Whispering Madness, Dark Deal, Wheel and Deal, Time Reversal, Time Spiral. And guess what? If you're running at least 3 of these cards that I've just listed, you're running pretty much the exact same deck as everyone else who plays Leovold is. It's too narrow, it's uninspiring, and it's an awful way to win by basically denying denying your opponents the ability to play Magic, which is what you've all sat down to do. There are very few Leovold deck lists that I've seen that are actually interesting to me, one of which was Elf Ball and the other is Doomsday Combo. Sure, they might run one or two of the cards that I listed, but they're not built around getting to one of them as fast as they humanly can. So to reiterate, I don't really have a problem with Leovold, I have a problem with the fact that everyone who plays Leovold seems to try and push him in one direction. Number 3, Sensei's Divining Top. I hate this card so much. The amount of times I have to sit there and wait while players are going top of the end of your turn, top of the end of your turn, top of the end of your turn. Well done, you've rearranged the top 3 cards of your deck 3 times and somehow managed to waste 15 minutes of my life. My view on this might be tainted also because I hate editing it because it takes so long because you'll have people just sitting there for 5 minutes staring at the same 3 cards. But at least with Scry you're able to put some of those cards on the bottom. It also confuses me to no end how people are surprised what they're drawing when they put the cards back 30 seconds ago. Then of course you always get the, oh, I didn't mean to put it in that order, and it's like, no, you cannot rearrange it for free just because you made a mistake. You've wasted 5 minutes of my life. Deal with the consequences. It also frustrates me to no end that it's so difficult to get rid of without using something like Crossing Grip or Stony Silence, which denies them the ability to use artifacts' abilities. Number 2, Armageddon. Now, Armageddon isn't necessarily the main offender at this slot, but rather mainland destruction without any kind of win condition on the board is. I have zero issues with mainland destruction being part of a viable strategy for helping you win, provided you're able to win. If you're casting Armageddon or Yocklehops just for the lols, as they say, then you're doing it wrong. I would rather be Cyclonic Rifted than having Armageddon resolve and have no one be able to win for the next 40 turns. Doing so is the fastest way to ensure that I never play another game with you again. And number 1, Stasis. I had the distinct pleasure of being able to be in a game where this resolved in one of the videos that I filmed for an upcoming gameplay video. It's bad enough with cards like Winter Orb, Static Orb, or Hokori Dustdrinker, which will not allow you to untap lands as freely as you want, but Stasis takes it to a whole new level. Chances are the main offender who's going to run this card is Derevi, which is just icing on the cake. Like most of the cards on the list, Stasis is here because it denies a fundamental part of Magic. It's a card that's absolutely devastating for an unprepared table and will often win the player who casts it the game. The problem is, unlike cards like Tooth and Nail, which can find 2 combo-enabling creatures to help you end the game, Stasis doesn't end the game right away. In fact, it does the opposite of that. It stalls the game to the point where someone's able to win with a 1-1 by slowly and steadily beating an opponent to death. Sure, it's viable, yes, it's established that it works, but my goodness, is it not a fun way to lose. Well gang, that was my top 10 EDH cards that I dislike playing against. What does your list include? Does Vorinclex or Jin-Gitaxias make your list? Let me know in the comments below. Please be sure to tune in every Monday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video, with some other videos popping up throughout the week. This video was brought to you in part by support from my Patreons. If you're looking for a way to help support the channel, I would strongly encourage you to look at the link in the About section below or just below in this video. And as always, thanks for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.